an enigma that many dismiss as a simple Easter egg, a nameless figure known in the files as Image Friend. At first glance, the question seems simple. If every Darkner is an object from the light world, what is Friend? But what if I told you that is the wrong question? What if Friend isn't an object at all? From its clear inspiration from the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland, its ability to break the fundamental rule of Darkners, appearing in any dark world without being carried there, its aesthetic, which directly connects it to the Titans, the very embodiment of fear, and above all, its unsettling relationship with a nightmare that seems to know Chris's deepest guilt and how it all connects to the bunker. But what does all this lead to? Well, it leads us to a shocking conclusion. Friend isn't a thing, it's a feeling. The manifestation of a remorse so deep, it has taken form. And to understand how this creature is the key to deciphering Chris's darkest secret, we must first analyze every time it has shown itself to us, every one of its Chapter 1 sightings. Image Friend is one of the most enigmatic elements in all of Deltarune, and ironically, it can't even be considered a proper character, at least not yet. We don't know its origins, its motivations, or even the slightest reason for its existence in the game. All we know for sure is that it's there, and it has sparked immense interest among players who are desperate to understand what or who it really is. In Chapter 2, Friend makes its first appearance in the basement of Queen's Mansion during the Spamton Neo side quest. While exploring the leftmost room, there's nothing there at first, but upon returning, the door is gone. In that moment, Friend watches Chris from the shadows, completely still, before vanishing. In Chapter 3, during Ralsei's monologue about how Dark Worlds function, Friend briefly appears in a form reminiscent of one of the amalgamates from Undertale. It laughs, and then jumps violently at the screen. It also makes an appearance in the secret minigame to obtain the Shadow Mantle. Inside the pyramid where the game begins, its eyes can be seen in the background on the far left. When you reach the opposite side, its mouth briefly materializes, accompanied by the same chilling laugh from the scene with Ralsei. In the final battle for the Shadow Mantle, it returns as an amorphous mass with cat ears, summoning the final boss. After the boss is defeated, Friend laughs again, a disturbing echo of its previous appearances. During Chapter 4, it can appear in the Batot minigame as the rarest cat. It awards a significant number of points, but in a trap disguised as a reward, drastically reduces the player's fuel. Finally, it can be found in the third sanctuary, inside a room that briefly lights up with sound waves when a switch is flipped. In an inaccessible area, Friend is there, alone, watching. Outside of the game itself, Friend has also made appearances in Deltarune's promotional events, like the Spamton Sweepstakes. On the official site, repeatedly clicking on a chair at deltarune.com/chair triggered a jump scare featuring Friend's eyes. Additionally, it can manifest in the hidden/rare cats minigame if you click 100 cats without reloading the page, or if you try to cheat by entering an impossible score, Friend appears and resets your score to 0. But what does all this mean on its own? In reality, not much. It's no exaggeration to say that when it comes to Friend, all we can do is speculate and build fan theories that, in all likelihood, including this one, will never come to pass. Still, that doesn't stop us from imagining and sharing ideas. And that's because Deltarune, unlike what the episodic format of many other games might suggest, is surprisingly direct about the kind of story it wants to tell. What I mean is, unlike other works that seem to rewrite their narrative as they develop, Deltarune maintains a thematic coherence. Replaying the chapters doesn't feel like exploring isolated stories, but rather like experiencing pieces of a well-thought-out whole. Because of this, it's more feasible, and even more stimulating, to speculate about what's happening within the game itself. So why do I mention this? Because for this theory, I will focus exclusively on in-game content. Although there's additional material outside the game, like the Spamton Sweepstakes page I mentioned, Toby Fox has clarified on several occasions that this content isn't necessarily canon. In hindsight, many of these extra tidbits seem more like foreshadowing than anything else. Teasers for what we would eventually see in future chapters. With that in mind, and remembering that Deltarune is a story with defined messages and themes, let's ask the big question again. What is Friend? Or more accurately, what does Friend represent within the lore? First and foremost, the true introduction of Image Friend as a narrative element occurs when Rousey, in Chapter 3, explains in greater detail what a Dark World is and why, as a Darkner, he cannot leave his domain for the Light World. According to his explanation, a Dark World is a distorted vision of reality seen through the prism of shadows. When the light begins to fade, a chair might look like a monster, a poster might seem to move, but when darkness consumes everything, you can no longer see anything. Unless, of course, the darkness itself grows darker, yet darker. Only then, perhaps, might you begin to see things again, to feel them, to hear them. And it is precisely at that moment that Friend appears. It's curious because if you pay close attention, the first thing shown on screen is its body, a silhouette immediately reminiscent of an Undertale amalgamate. This body emerges just after Rousey mentions what would happen if the darkness grew darker yet darker. It's not until he says you might start to feel things that Friend's face appears on that body. Deltarune.com/chair was already subtly hinting at what Friend is, at least as a concept. The page shows us a chair that when interacted with reveals its Dark World version. If clicked repeatedly, Friend's eyes appear, implying that Friend is part of a Dark World. This scene makes it quite clear that Friend is, at least in theory, a Darkner. The big question is, what object, if any, does it represent? And I put special emphasis on if any. The only thing we really know about its form is that it resembles a cat. What we don't know is whether this amorphous appearance is its original shape or if it lacks a defined form altogether, merely consisting of a colossal smile and two different colored eyes. An entity that, in each of its appearances, adopts a vaguely feline figure because it's the one it prefers. And that image is Friend's most recognizable feature, a wide, floating smile and a pair of eyes, one pink, one yellow, shining in the dark. Where have we seen something like that before? The Cheshire Cat from the classic Alice in Wonderland is probably the first thing that comes to mind, and for good reason. It's not just because its presence is often reduced to a large grin and a pair of eyes floating in the gloom, but because the work itself shares many similarities with Deltarune. Alice in Wonderland begins with a bored girl sitting next to her sister who is reading a book with no pictures. Suddenly, Alice sees a white rabbit who talks to himself and carries a pocket watch, lamenting that he's late. Driven by curiosity, Alice follows him and falls down a deep rabbit hole, thus beginning her journey into the surreal, subterranean world of Wonderland. And while there are multiple ways to interpret that story, the most popular is that it's all a metaphor for personal growth, a coming-of-age journey told through a fantastical dream, born from a childish desire to find something more imaginative and magical than, say, the aforementioned boring book. In that world, filled with strange characters and absurd situations, one of the most memorable is the Cheshire Cat. This peculiar feline appears when Alice is lost and looking for directions, and while he doesn't offer clear answers, he does deliver phrases full of double meanings that guide her in an abstract way. One of his most famous lines is, "If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there." He has the ability to appear and disappear at will, often leaving behind only his grin suspended in the air and darkness. He also mocks the rules of Wonderland, claiming that everyone there is mad, including himself. And although he might seem like an irrelevant character, upon revisiting the story, it's clear that the Cheshire Cat actually serves as a cryptic guide. He acts as an observer who doesn't intervene directly in the plot, but whose presence is important for completing Alice's journey. Deltarune shares much of that spirit. It's also a journey through fantastical, dreamlike worlds, starring teenagers who are, consciously or unconsciously, seeking to escape reality. In fact, the first chapter of Deltarune takes place in a world of cards and board games, a similar setting that marks the climax of Alice in Wonderland as she prepares to face the Queen of Hearts. Now, while I know some people confidently argue that Friend is inspired by cats from Japanese culture, which is plausible, given Toby Fox's well-known affinity for Japan and basically everything about it, the formal and thematic similarities lead me to believe that Friend is far more connected to the Cheshire Cat. Both are cats whose smiles and eyes stand out in darkness, and both exist in worlds that seem born from a dream or a distortion of reality. Does this mean that Friend is simply a reinterpretation of the Cheshire Cat? A kind of bizarre guide for Chris and company? No, while the similarity to the Cheshire Cat is clear, Deltarune follows very specific narrative rules that are not present in Alice in Wonderland. We can say there was an inspiration, but for Image Friend, it seems to be just that, a reference, not a direct adaptation. Therefore, we must return to the previous question. Is Friend an object from the Light World? What is its true identity? We've established that Friend is a Darkner, as its narrative introduction is directly tied to the explanation of what a dark world is. And in theory, that means it should be linked to an object. However, Darkners can only appear in other dark worlds if they are carried there by a Lightner. For example, Tenna can't go to Rousey's castle unless Chris and Susie bring the television with them. If Friend is an object, it would have to be something Chris or Susie is carrying. But since neither carries a backpack, we'd have to assume it's something small, something one of them has in their pocket. Or maybe not. There is a special type of Darkner that doesn't follow this rule, the Titans. They are a peculiar category of Darkners. While we could debate whether they technically count, they are still Darkners. However, unlike common Darkners, who usually represent objects from the light world, and to some extent reflect the experiences or emotions of those who created them, the Titans are something different. As Rousey says, they are a pure representation of the fear of darkness itself. The Titans are the only Darkners not tied to a physical object, but to a feeling. In this case, the fear of darkness explains why they can appear at any time. They aren't transportable objects, but a manifestation of something we all carry within us. They can appear in any dark world. See where I'm going with this? Very few Darkners share the stark black and white aesthetic that characterizes the Titans. In fact, if you think about it, you can count them on one hand. This leads me to believe that characters with such a dark appearance are linked to some fear, or represent fear, or corruption in some way. And yes, this also includes the Knight, whose form resembles that of the Titans. And among these is, you guessed it, Friend. If we analyze its behavior, Friend seems more like a feeling than an object. Its face emerges just as Rousey mentions that in the deepest darkness, one might feel things. Every time it appears, it does so ominously, lurking in dark corners, showing only its eyes and its smile. So what fear does it represent? If we look closely, Friend appears almost exclusively when Chris is alone. This could mean it's a personal, intimate fear, something only they feel. And I think its latest appearance, so far, gives us a clue as to what that fear might be. After Rousey's explanation, Friend appears again during the final confrontation to obtain the Shadow Mantle. In this battle, the boss known in the game files as Nightmare Boss presents itself as a sinister figure resembling a cloak, with a strange emotional connection to Chris. During the fight, it taunts them, insinuating that Chris is enjoying something bad, and that Chris is just making excuses, claiming that it's not them in control, but someone else. The battle setting is a retro version of the bunker, and during its attacks, the Nightmare Boss summons small versions of Friend to attack. Once this boss is defeated and the Shadow Mantle is attained, Friend's story, at least for now, comes to an end. All of this leads me to believe that Friend is the representation of a very specific fear that Chris hold inside themselves, something related to the bunker, something they saw there, or something they stopped seeing, a fear so profound that it has taken the form of this creature. And considering Nightmare's unsettling dialogue, found that it has something they saw there, or something they stopped seeing, a fear so profound that it has taken the form of this creature. And considering Nightmare's unsettling dialogue, I believe Friend embodies remorse itself. Chris has done something bad, perhaps very bad, and the game has been subtly hinting at this through their behavior. We know that Chris used to enjoy scaring Noelle. They once put a bath bomb in the toilet, and they seem to be connected to the Knight. Nightmare clearly knew something about Chris. It knew they had done something reprehensible, something that eats at them from the inside, which they try to justify by saying it wasn't their fault. And I think that's where Friend comes from. It is quite literally the manifestation of remorse, or the fear of that act being exposed. It's what Chris doesn't want to face, nor what they want anyone else to discover. In essence, Friend would be a disturbing version of the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, but rather than an enigmatic guide, it's a distorted reflection of guilt. Ultimately though, only time will tell what, exactly, Chris is afraid to face.
Tiger Crystal, bất tung sảng khoái, đánh thức bản lĩnh.
This is an artist on TikTok, and a lot of people have debated this artist's artwork for AI or tracing, etc. And then there was like a call out about this situation as well. It's very interesting, and we can go and dive into.
Keep Noelle's stolen watch in Deltarune Chapter 4. Spoilers ahead, so watch at your own After you ram into Berdly again and again and get abandoned by your friends, you'll ultimately truce with Noelle as she joins your party. Now steal her silver watch and put it on yourself, then proceed to freeze the chicken. Once you whisper Noelle's name to freeze the big shot, you'll close the fountain and reach the light world to see that you're wearing the wristwatch instead of the bandage. Now when you visit Noelle at the hospital, she'll panic, asking why you're wearing her watch and when you got it, so you can say in your dream. Then in chapter 4, Noelle will reveal that in the middle of the night, Chris showed up and apologized to Noelle for stealing her watch, saying it was a stupid prank. After saying Berdly would get better, apparently Chris even put the watch back on Noelle's wrist. Then why is it that some players do in fact lose the silver watch while other players still have it? Apparently we're all supposed to lose the silver watch because of this scene, but due to a current game bug, you'll only actually lose the watch if you don't have it equipped. That means if you didn't take it off, you'll actually still have Noelle's watch even though you also gave it back to her. This may get patched in the future, but for now, enjoy your bugged watch. Follow for more secrets like there's a secret
Very recently, a new website called WPlace just dropped. In WPlace, you can draw things on the world map. Yes, you heard me, the world map. And the Undertale/Deltarune community has taken this to their advantage. By drawing sprite art in as many places as physically possible, they have spread the wonderful news of Deltarune across most of the globe. What happens if I zoom in on Boston? Oh, yeah. That is quite a lot of stuff. And it didn't even take 2 cities. We already got the Asgore gift. Like, literally, straight up. There's Asgore. But I don't see Des anywhere though. That's something lacking. Oh, but I do see Togor. That is nice to look at. My favorite Chapter 3 Zelda game characters. Hero Scar. And Hero Togor. You know, I got usual sprite Then there's Noelle. What the hell is wrong with her eyes? Got a friend inside you? You look like you really do look like you have a friend inside you. Even your smile seems to indicate that there is a certain apprentice within your being. Yeah, of course we got Sans. This rat guy doesn't seem to. Yeah, of course we got Sans. This rat guy doesn't seem to appreciate Sans' existence. KFC! KFC! First we got Frisk, then we get Kara, then Chris, then half of Chris's Dark World sprite. Somebody didn't get the time to finish the head, I assume. That's enough of looking at Boston. Let's look at something else, shall we?
Hating all my fine ass stunner, nigga, you mad?
Why is this? Why did there has to be at least 3 people that worked on this. This is a magnificent way of spending your time on the internet, making high resolution Sans fan art. I appreciate it. Everywhere you go, you can see Deltarune, 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 looking pissed as always, Starwalker. Deltarune is actually everywhere. When you look at literally anywhere, you see spam. Excuse me, what? I love TV. That's the spirit. Vatican City. There you are. Oh yeah, those are some Deltarune characters I see. Habemus, Spamton. My face when Spamton has become the Habemus. Really proud of him. From being a big shot to being a member of the papacy, Spamton truly has come a long way. Look at Jevil in the Swiss Guard uniform, ready to defend the Pope from Chaos. Baggin, sermon, my man. Good use of this line from Deltarune, not gonna lie. Rules, Cardinal, huh? Joining the papacy now, are we? Let's go over to New York if I can. Let's try to spot Deltarune sprite art somewhere. What the hell is this? Oh, this is the first city I don't actually see any. Deltarune sprite art anywhere. It's all BFDI apparently. Oh, I said that too soon. I said that way too soon. Everywhere I look, there is Deltarune. Everywhere I scroll, it's all yeah, of course you got Sans in downtown friggin' Manhattan. Who else could be here? Half of Spamton's face. Complete Spamton. All of Spamton, yes. Napstab Luke. Rose Plush. Hero Sword, yes. Clover from Undertale Yellow. Winged Ingaster. Chris with... Those eye colors look very, familiar. Yeah, it's all Deltarune Undertale here. Oh, yeah. Pruncell. You can never forget about Pruncell. I'm lagging so hard right now. Excuse me. I'm old. Yeah, can't forget about Gerson. Gerson's eyes. Yeah, why are Gerson's eyes like that? No. Perhaps you could maybe make the Perhaps you could maybe make the conclusion from his eye colors. Let's look at the entirety of New York. Oh, this is laggy as heck. You can still see Deltarune, much of Deltarune content from here. This is New York City, everyone. Try to spot Deltarune. Marathon. The friend. Cruzy. Marathon, more Marathon. Rory Nines. Lancer. Lesser Dad. So, this place is all about